The emergency room was a whirlwind of noise and movement. Machines beeped steadily, lights flickered, and voices rose above the sound of hurried footsteps. Nurses rushed from bed to bed, doctors called out orders, and patients groaned softly or cried out in pain. Amid all the chaos stood Elena. She was a nurse with years of experience, but she didn't shout or run. Instead, she moved with quiet confidence, her calm presence almost like a small island in a storm. Her eyes were sharp and kind, always watching, always ready. Tonight was especially busy. The waiting room was full, stretchers lined the halls, and the staff felt the pressure mounting. Elena balanced several tasks at once, checking vital signs, comforting a frightened child, and helping a man who had fallen and scraped his knee. Her hands worked fast but gentle, steady and sure. She didn't complain. She had learned long ago that staying calm was the best way to help people who were scared or hurting. Even when the noise around her felt overwhelming, Elena focused on the small moments, a reassuring smile, a soft word, a steady hand. For Elena, this was just another night in the ER, but none of the chaos would prepare her for what was coming next. Just as Elena was catching her breath, the automatic doors swung open. A man in his 50s hurried inside. His face was flushed, eyes darting around the room, full of frustration. He was clutching his chest and wobbling slightly. "I need help," now he snapped, pushing past a few people in the waiting room. "I'm having chest pain. This can't wait." Elena approached him gently. "Sir, please take a seat. We'll get to you as soon as we can. If you're feeling worse, let me know immediately." But the man didn't listen. "Too slow," he barked, glaring at Elena. "You're not doing your job right. I've been standing here forever." Elena stayed calm. "I understand you're in pain. But we have a system to make sure everyone gets the care they need safely. If you sit, I'll check on you right away." He scoffed loudly, louder than necessary. "No, you're just slow. I don't have time for this." Other nurses stopped what they were doing for a moment, watching the scene. Some shook their heads, tired of people like him. A few patients glanced over, some with sympathy for Elena, others with annoyance at the man's outburst. Without another word, the man spun around and stomped back to the waiting area. He dropped into a chair with a scowl, still clutching his chest but refusing to calm down. Elena watched him quietly. Her heart sank, but she kept her voice steady. The ER was full of tough moments like this, and she had learned to take them in stride. What she didn't know yet was that this man, so angry and impatient, was about to change everything that night. After the man stormed off, Elena felt the weight of the night settle heavier on her shoulders. She quietly slipped away from the noise and chaos, heading to a small supply room tucked away behind the main hall. Once inside, she closed the door gently and leaned against it. No one could see her now. The tight knot of stress and sadness she had been holding in all night broke. A single tear rolled down her cheek, quickly followed by another. She didn't want anyone to see her cry. Not here, not at work, but the pressure was too much. She had been working long shifts, 14 hours each day for the past week. There was never enough rest, never enough food. Her stomach growled quietly, reminding her she hadn't eaten since breakfast. And at home, her mother was sick, alone, tired, and needing care that Elena wasn't always able to give. Tonight, on top of all that, she was humiliated by a man who shouted at her for being too slow. A man who didn't know how hard she was trying, how much she cared. Elena wiped her tears quickly with the sleeve of her uniform. She took a deep breath and pushed the feelings back inside, folding them away for later. There was no time to break down. The ER was still full of people who needed her. She opened the door quietly and stepped back into the bright, noisy world. No one noticed the moment she was alone, just a nurse doing her job, trying to be strong. Elena returned to her patients, but couldn't shake the image of the angry man sitting alone in the waiting area. "Mr. Carver," she glanced his way every few minutes, watching quietly from a distance. Something didn't feel right. His breathing was uneven, shallow. Tiny beads of sweat glistened on his forehead, even though the room wasn't warm. Her heart quickened with concern. She knew chest pain could be dangerous, yet she remembered how he had yelled at her. Still, she trusted her gut. Slowly she walked over to him, trying to keep her voice soft and calm. "Mr. Carver, May I check your pulse and blood pressure? It won't take long. He looked up, eyes sharp and tired. No, just go do your job somewhere else. He snapped, glaring like she had insulted him. Elena paused but didn't back away. I'm only trying to help. He clenched his fists, breathing hard. The room seemed to quiet for a moment, like everyone was holding their breath. She could see the fear behind his anger. Fear he was trying to hide. Her hands shook slightly, but she reached out and gently placed a hand on his wrist. Please, just a quick check. It's important. For a few seconds he stared at her. Then slowly, he nodded, defeated. Elena's eyes never left his face. She knew something was very wrong. The night had just taken a dangerous turn, and she was the only one who noticed. Just as Elena began to take Mr. Carver's pulse, his body suddenly stiffened. His eyes rolled back, and before anyone could react, he collapsed hard onto the floor. The emergency room seemed to freeze. Nurses stopped in their tracks, doctors paused mid-step, and even the beeping machines felt distant. Elena was the first to rush forward. Her training kicked in instantly. Call a code blue, she shouted clearly, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. Several staff members swarmed around, but Elena stayed calm and focused. She knelt beside Mr. Carver, and began chest compressions, counting out loud and steady beats. The pressure on his chest was strong but careful, every second mattered. One nurse prepared the defibrillator, while another checked his airway. The room filled with tension as everyone watched Elena lead the life-saving effort. Minutes passed like hours. Elena's arms ached, sweat dripped down her forehead, but she didn't stop. Finally, after a shocking silence, the monitor beeped again, a heartbeat. Relief flooded the room. The doctors quickly took over, stabilizing Mr. Carver and rushing him to the ICU. Elena sat back on her heels, exhausted but steady. Around her, the other nurses exchanged looks, respect, surprise, even a little awe. The man who had yelled at her minutes before was now alive because of her quick actions. No one spoke at first. The ER buzzed back to life, but something had changed. Elena's quiet strength had saved a life tonight, and the whole room felt it. After the rush, the emergency room slowly returned to its usual pace, but the air felt different. Elena sat quietly in a corner, her body still trembling from the rush of adrenaline. She was drained, physically and emotionally, but inside, a quiet sense of relief settled over her. A doctor approached and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. You saved his life tonight, he said softly. Elena didn't say much, she just nodded, feeling the weight of those words sink in. It wasn't about praise or thanks, it was about knowing she had done everything she could. Around her, some of the nurses and staff who had watched the earlier confrontation now looked at her with new respect. No more whispers, no more sideways glances, just silent acknowledgement. Mr. Carver had been rushed to the intensive care unit, stabilized but still in serious condition. Elena hoped he would pull through. The quiet in the room was different now, softer, filled with a mix of relief and gratitude. Elena's heart still pounded, but the sting of the earlier insult was gone, replaced by something stronger. She hadn't needed to prove herself. The night had done it for her. Sometimes the people who seem the slowest, the quietest, carry the greatest strength inside. The next morning, the emergency room was quieter. The chaos of the night had settled, leaving behind tired faces and soft conversations. Elena made her rounds, and found Mr. Carver awake, sitting up in his hospital bed. His face was pale, and his eyes held something different, regret. When Elena entered, he looked up slowly. Nurse Elena, he said quietly, his voice shaking. I'm sorry for how I treated you last night. Elena smiled gently. It's okay, she said. I know you were scared, chest pain can be terrifying. He looked down at his hands, ashamed. I didn't mean to yell, I was just scared, and frustrated. I didn't think about how hard you were working. She nodded. That fear can make anyone act in ways they don't want to. But you're here now, and that's what matters. For a moment they just sat quietly. No more anger or frustration, just a shared understanding. Mr. Carver looked up and managed a weak smile. Thank you for saving my life. Elena's eyes softened. That's why I'm here. In that small hospital room, the anger melted away. What remained was something stronger: respect, forgiveness, and the fragile hope that sometimes people can change. That night in the emergency room showed something important. People are quick to judge when they're scared, or in pain. They shout and push, not knowing what others are going through. Elena had been tired, hungry, and worried about her own life, yet she stayed calm and kept helping. The man who called her too slow was the same man she saved from death. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the strongest. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment to see the truth about someone. The whole ER froze when the too slow nurse saved a man's life. She didn't need applause, just a little respect. And maybe, that's what everyone needs.